So, big focus in this one on equations and things. But again, we have our infamous problems between proportions and fractions. Fractions is just an issue for a lot of you, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what our general rule of thumb has been before, the right way to do it would be to find the least common denominator for 2, 3, 5, and 6. But since some of you have some issues with multiplying, what I have found to be easier long term for some of you would simply be to take those numbers that are in the denominator, any ones that are different, in this case it's all of them, and we are just going to multiply them together. And whatever that value happens to be is the value that we're going to distribute through. Now, again, no need for panic. We have a calculator here, but here's how I'm going to clean these up. I'm going to take each one, and I can either do like 2 times 180 enter divided by 3 enter and get it that way. That's one way I can do it for each one. Or if you don't want to deal with it that way, you can just do like 7 divided by 5 times 180. You can just do the fraction times that and do it that way. But either way, as long as I have the 180, I'll let the calculator do my work for me. Shoot, if you got the tool, might as well use it. And the nice thing is, if you've done it right, all your numbers come out whole. And once I get here, again, I've said it and I'll say it again now, I have a lot of equation solving experts, so this shouldn't be a big deal at this point. Yes, my answer is going to look weird. Guaranteed. Not going to come out nice, more than likely. But there's nothing wrong with that. And so my job just becomes let's see here. Make sure I'm adding right. Yes, I am. And now at this point, 702 divided by 90. Now, you could write a decimal, could write a fraction. Most of the time when I'm putting answers down on a key or whatever, I'll use the fraction, but if you wrote 7.8, it's not wrong. But if you see my answer key with this, and then you have 7.8, and you're like, I don't know if this is right, just type it in the calculator and see if it works. Okay? So anytime we get something with fractions, that's my best way to go. Now the other one I thought would cause issues would be number 5. And here's why I thought that. When we cross multiply, we tend to forget that there's these imaginary parentheses around each of my binomial terms. So then when I go to cross multiply, so I can solve this, so I've got 5 times 2x minus 4 equals negative 3 x plus 8. And I got to distribute and solve it like I'd solve any equation at this point. Make sure you distribute all the way through, and that's the biggest reason that the parentheses are so important. Because if I don't have the parentheses, I just times these two together and then minus 4, and that's not going to work. So once I get that distributed through, again, I need to get all my x's to one side. It doesn't matter which side you put them to. I just like to keep them positive, so I'm going to move them over to the left side here. And I'm going to have to add my 20. And divide by 13. And I'm set. So again, don't let fractions make you think anything's going wrong. More times than not, that's going to be the right way to go about it. And even though I didn't circle number 6, I want to make mention of it. When it says evaluate at f of -5, it doesn't mean I stick -5 in for x on both of these. What it basically means is, okay, -5. -5 is going to be true for one of those. Which one of those, if I plug in -5, is a true statement? The top one or the bottom one? Which one? So is -5 greater than 2?
Oh, no, around 1.
Okay. -5 is less than 2. It's this one. So I'm going to plug the -5 in there for x, get my answer, and I'm going to be done. You can't plug it in for both. That's not how this works. Okay. So figure out where this value is true, and then plug it in for the x in that expression. So your answer would just be 3 times -5 minus 2. You're set. So not too bad. Not too bad. And again, some of these I may not do on this one because they show up again on another, but other ones I think you can get. Now this one, I remember this. Arch nemesis of this group. Piecewise functions. And it shows up a couple of times. Here's our key, people. You're going to make two lines. They both have to start at these values. They both have to start at x equals 0. So you're like, okay, so when x equals 0, what does y equal? What does it equal when I plug in 0 here? Well, -0, that doesn't make any sense. So 0 plus 6 is 6. This particular line starts at the point 0, 6. So 0, 6, and it's a closed dot because of the or equal to. Okay, we'll come back to that guy and make his line in a minute. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the one below it. When I plug in my 0 for x, what do I get out? Well, 2/3 times 0 is 0, minus 5 is -5. 0, -5, but there's no line underneath, so it's an open circle. So you're like, okay, so I kind of might see how you get the first point here. How do I get the rest of the line? Well, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. X is less than 0. Less than is left. So this line is going to go to the left of 0, 6. So I look at my slope, and I say, okay, my slope's -1/1. So normally I'd start going down 1, right 1. Well, what's my problem? I'm not going left, I'm going right. So if the slope's down 1, right 1, how can I do it so we go left instead? Instead of down and right,
Up and left.
nice, up and left, up and left, up and left. And start at my big dot and just connect the dots. We're going left, starting at 0, 6, all right. And then I do the same thing for the other one. I go, okay, x is greater than 0. That means for this one, our line's going to the right. So my slope is 2/3. So I go up 2 and right 3. Hey, I'm going right. Good deal. Up 2 and right 3. Up 2 and right 3. And we're set. But the key here is both lines have to start at the value that's in the inequality. If you start at some other random place, there's nothing even to look at because it's not going to be right. And there is. You've got to remember your slope, which direction are you going based on this, and then plugging that number in. But again, we did a lot more in depth with a couple of different lessons on this with 2.7, which again, we'll show you how to work both of those things, both the website and my YouTube page to help you with that in a bit. To the back. All right, function notation. Multiplying, adding, all this other good stuff. Okay, so what does this mean? This means I'm going to take my g of x function and I'm going to subtract my f of x function. It does not mean I multiply my answer by x. No, 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 no. That x is a label. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my g of x and I'm going to minus my f of x. Now I can't leave this because I have like terms. But again, got to have the parentheses. Got to remember to distribute. So I go ahead and I do that. And then it's proper to try and put this in standard form, which is the biggest exponent down to the least. So negative 3x squared plus 2x, and then 5 plus 2 is 7. And I'm done. Again, do not multiply the x back through. Not having it, not having it, not having it. And the only difference is if they give you a number, you just plug the number in for x once you put them together. Okay? So again, nothing too bad with those when we're trying to work that out. Actually, speaking of plugging a number in, I circled 13. So we got p of x and r of x. P times r of negative 4 means I'm going to take p of negative 4 times r of negative 4. So p of negative 4. In other words, plug in negative 4 where x is at. So 4 times negative 4 squared minus 7. We'll get that answer in a second. Over here, we plug in negative 4 for x. 8 plus 5 times negative 4 and the absolute value. Now again, when you're doing this, if you're not comfortable that you're going to do the order of operations correctly or you have any other issues, then just type it in. Don't make life difficult on yourself. Over here, I could do the 8 plus 5 times negative 4. Oops, I did something silly. Oh, it's supposed to be negative. Okay. Now, it says negative 12, but what do the absolute value bars do to my answer? Make it positive. So then I'm just going to multiply 57 times positive 12 and get my answer. Factoring will come back for some of you momentarily because it shows up in the first reviews, and that's where I did the examples. So I will let the first videos, when we play them here, take care of that. So we're going to jump down to the bottom here. Okay, what are the degrees of the following polynomials? Just look for the biggest exponent. 3. That's it. Okay, wherever that biggest exponent is, that's the degree of your polynomial. And then our last one for this review is we are selling some gourmet pizzas, we have revenue, we have costs. How do I write the profit function? Again, revenue, minus cost. So I do 24x minus all of my cost. So again, I need the parentheses. And once I get here, do a little distributing. Make sure that negative gets to both terms, even the 65. And then we're just going to combine like terms. And that would be my profit function for that one. So I'm just basically taking r of x and subtracting c of x is what I'm doing on that. And that will bring our mini review 3 review to a wrap.